grandeur of the ceremony. However, he was shocked when she arrived accompanied by a boy who was his exact look-alike. His arrogance quickly turned into unease. Who was that child? The autumn sun streamed through the tall windows of the executive office on the 47th floor of Boston's Prudential Tower. Jason Greedy, 38, stood gazing out at the skyline, absently twirling a Mont Blanc pen between his fingers. His reflection in the glass revealed sharp features, neatly trimmed brown hair, and a custom-tailored buy-in suit worth more than some luxury cars. "Mr. Greedy, Miss Danworth is on line 2, Rachel, his assistant, announced via intercom. "Thank you, Rachel." Jason pressed the button. "Karen, darling," he began smoothly. "Jason, you won't believe it." Karen's voice brimmed with excitement. The decorator suggested something extraordinary for the plaza entrance. Blue Vanda orchids cascading from the ceiling to the floor, individually lit. "It's perfect for our Starry Night theme." Jason smiled faintly, picturing the extravagance. "Sounds wonderful, Karen. I trust your vision." "And about the guest list," Karen continued. "We need to finalize it today. Invitations go out tomorrow." Jason hesitated. "Actually, I want to add someone." Karen paused. "Someone? I thought we capped it at 500. "Tiffany Collins," he said evenly. The silence on the line was heavy. Karen was many things, but naive wasn't one of them. "Tiffany Collins? As in your college ex-girlfriend?" "Yes. I think it's appropriate." Karen laughed bitterly. "Appropriate? Jason, nothing about inviting an ex to our wedding is appropriate. Unless," she trailed off, "unless there's a reason." Jason turned back to the window, his voice quiet. "She works for the Boston Globe now. It could be good publicity." "Please don't insult me," Karen snapped. "You've never cared about publicity. What's really going on?" Jason closed his eyes, remembering the ache he'd felt seeing Tiffany's name in print after so many years. 15 years had passed since he chose London and his career over her. I want her to see," he finally admitted. "To see where I've gotten." Karen's tone shifted. "You still think about her?" "It's not that," Jason said quickly. "It's about validation." Karen sighed. "Fine. Add her to the list. But Jason, if this is about validation, we should talk about postponing the wedding." "Karen, that's ridiculous. It's just an invitation." "If you say so." Her voice was distant now. "I have a meeting with the chef about the menu. We'll talk later." The line went dead, leaving Jason with his thoughts. He opened a drawer, pulling out a yellowed envelope. Inside was a photo of him and Tiffany, smiling outside MIT, young in love and unaware of the future. Rachel entered with documents. "Mr. Greedy, the board is ready, and Mrs. Patterson called about the tasting." "Rachel," Jason said, staring at the photo, "find Tiffany Collins' address. She's at the Boston Globe. Send her a Swarovski invitation." "Of course, sir." "Anything else?" "Yes." He paused. "Find out more about her." That evening, Jason drove his Aston Martin to his penthouse, thoughts of Tiffany swirling. Had she married? Built the quiet life he'd once dismissed? His phone buzzed. Karen. "Jason, about Tiffany," she began. "Why do I feel like there's more to this?" "You're overreacting," he replied. "She probably won't even come." But when Rachel confirmed the RSVP, Jason's stomach sank. "Sir," she added cautiously, "Miss Collins's guest is her 8-year-old son." Jason froze. 8 years? Memory stirred. A single night in Boston, 7 years ago, during a business trip. That night, Karen confronted him. "Jason, did you see her during that trip?" He didn't answer. Karen laughed bitterly. "You really have no idea, do you?" The suite door swung open abruptly. Tiffany stood there, poised yet familiar. Beside her was a boy, a spitting image of Jason at 8. "Jason," Tiffany said evenly, "meet your son." Jason's breath caught as the boy studied him. "Are you my dad?" Jason knelt, his voice cracking. "Yes, I am." "Do you have a PlayStation?" A choked sob drew everyone's attention. Karen stood against the wall, silent tears streaming down her perfectly made-up face. "Karen," Jason began. "No," she raised her hand, stopping him. "Don't you dare." Turning to Rachel, who still stood at the door, she ordered, "Cancel everything. Now." "But Miss Danworth, there are 500 guests downstairs." "Cancel it." Karen shouted before regaining her composure. And call my parents. Tell them. Her voice wavered. Tell them there's been a family emergency. Tiffany stepped forward. Karen, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. No. Karen cut her off. Don't be. You're doing what you should have done 8 years ago. She looked at Jason, her eyes as hard as emeralds. As for you, I hope it was worth keeping your secrets. With that, she left the suite, leaving behind a deafening silence. Jason loosened his tie, feeling suffocated. Owen, Tiffany spoke gently. Why don't you go with Rachel to the cafe? I heard they have the best milkshakes in Boston. The boy hesitated. But we just met. I know, sweetheart. But Mommy needs to talk to your dad for a moment. I promise we won't take long. Rachel extended her hand to Owen, who took it after casting one last curious glance at Jason. When the door closed, Tiffany turned to him. I didn't come here to ruin your wedding. Then why did you come? Because Owen started asking questions. Questions I couldn't answer on my own anymore. She pulled something out of her bag, an old photo. He found this last month. Jason recognized it instantly. It was the same one he kept in his drawer. Him and Tiffany during their MIT days. He's brilliant, you know, Tiffany continued. Just like you were. He loves science. Always wanting to figure out how things work. When he saw the photo, he started researching you. Found articles, interviews. He's the one who wanted to come to the wedding. Why didn't you tell me before? Jason asked, his voice low. Before when, Jason? Her voice wavered slightly. When you left for London without looking back. Or after that night when you ignored all my attempts to reach you. Jason sank heavily into an armchair. I was building something big. I couldn't afford distractions. Distractions. Tiffany laughed, a hollow sound. Is that how you see family? As a distraction? No, He ran his hands over his face. I don't know what I think anymore. When I saw you two walk through that door, it's like my whole world flipped upside down. Welcome to my world, she said quietly. For the past 8 years, she sat in the chair opposite him. Owen is an incredible kid, Jason. He deserves to know his father. Even if that father chose power and money over love. Her words hit him like daggers. What do you want from me, Tiffany? Me? Nothing. But Owen, he deserves the chance to have a father if you want that, of course. If you're ready to be more than just a successful CEO with a penthouse in Back Bay. The silence that followed was interrupted by voices in the hallway. Guests being informed of the cancellation. Jason could hear the indignation, the speculation, the malicious gossip that would undoubtedly circulate for months to come. What's he like? The question escaped him before he could stop it. A small smile touched Tiffany's lips. He loves astronomy. He has a telescope in his room and knows all the constellations. He plays baseball in the youth league. He's a pitcher like you were. He hates broccoli but loves pepperoni pizza. He's afraid of thunder but pretends he isn't. And, she hesitated, he asks about you. He's always asked. Jason felt something break inside him. Maybe his pride, maybe the mask he'd been wearing for so long. I want to meet him, he said finally. For real. Not just as a dramatic introduction at a canceled wedding. Are you sure? Tiffany asked, her voice soft. Because this isn't something you can walk away from when the next big merger comes along. I'm sure. And for the first time in a long time, Jason felt he was being completely honest. At that moment, Owen returned to the suite, a half-finished chocolate milkshake in his hand. Mom, did you know they have a giant chocolate fountain in the kitchen? Really? Tiffany smiled. Yeah. And Rachel said we can eat all the chocolate we want because... He paused, realizing what he was about to say. Because the wedding's canceled, Jason finished softly. Oh, and he hesitated. I'd like to talk to you if that's okay. The boy looked at his mother, who nodded encouragingly. About what? Well, for starters, how about you tell me about this telescope of yours? Owen's eyes lit up. It's a Celestron NexStar 8 SE. I can see Saturn's rings with it, and last week, I saw Jupiter's moons. As Owen animatedly talked about astronomy, Jason realized he was smiling. Not the practiced smile he used in business meetings, but a genuine one he hadn't worn in years. Downstairs, the grand ballroom of the Boston Plaza Hotel was a scene of controlled chaos. I know we have a lot to rebuild, Jason said carefully, but I want you to know that you and Owen, are the best part of my life now. Tiffany looked at him, surprised by the raw honesty in his voice. I want this to work too, Jason. For Owen, and maybe even for us. But we need to take it slow. Jason nodded, understanding the weight of her words. Slow sounds perfect. Owen returned to the room, his backpack slung over his shoulder, ready for school. Can we go now? Of course, Jason said, grabbing his car keys. How about we listen to that podcast about space exploration on the way? Yes, Owen exclaimed, his excitement palpable. As the three walked out of the apartment, Jason felt something new and comforting. Hope. Not for the next big corporate acquisition or quarterly profit, but for the future. A future he was determined to build, not alone, but with the people who truly mattered. In the days that followed, Jason poured his energy into planning Owen's birthday party. The planetarium was booked, and he managed to secure an even bigger surprise. A retired astronaut agreed to make a special appearance to talk to the kids about his adventures in space. On the night of the party, the planetarium buzzed with excited children, telescopes, and interactive exhibits. Owen, wearing a Saturn-themed t-shirt Jason had bought him, beamed with joy. Did you do all this? Owen asked his father, his eyes wide with amazement. With a little help from your mom and Dr. Martinez, Jason replied, smiling. When the astronaut arrived and began sharing stories about space travel, the kids were captivated. Jason stood back, watching Owen, who eagerly asked thoughtful questions and shone as the curious, brilliant child he was. Tiffany walked up beside Jason, holding a cup of coffee. You've outdone yourself. He's going to remember this forever. I hope so, Jason said. I want him to have happy memories. Lots of them. As the party wound down, Owen approached Jason with a wrapped gift in his hands. This is for you, Dad. Jason opened it to find a small model rocket with the words, Best Dad in the Universe, engraved on the base. His chest tightened with emotion. Thank you, Owen. This means the world to me, he said, pulling his son into a hug. Tiffany watched, smiling softly, as Owen leaned his head against Jason's shoulder, tired but content. In that moment, she knew that despite all the challenges of the past, they were finally on the right path together. The universe seemed vast and full of possibilities, but for Jason, Tiffany, and Owen, the most important thing was right there in their hands, the chance to start over as a family. I'm still learning how to be a father, and I've made more mistakes than I can count, but I want to be a part of his life, really be a part of it, not just for breakfasts and alternating weekends. Tiffany studied him for a moment. Is that why you moved to Cambridge? Partly, he admitted, his eyes meeting hers. The other part. He hesitated. The other part was to be closer to you too. The silence that followed was delicate, like a fragile soap bubble suspended in the air. Ready, Owen called, bounding back into the kitchen. Can we go now? Of course, sweetheart, Tiffany said, breaking eye contact with Jason. Your dad's coming with us to school today, right? Can I? Owen asked hopefully. Always, Jason smiled, grabbing his car keys. During the drive to school, Owen chattered endlessly about his robotics project, his baseball practices, and his excitement for the planetarium party. Jason watched him in the rearview mirror, amazed at how eloquent and enthusiastic his son was about so many different things. And after the party, can we look at Jupiter's moons with my telescope? Owen asked, finishing a long monologue about astronomy. Of course, Jason replied. In fact, he glanced briefly at Tiffany, who gave a subtle nod. How about we go camping this weekend? I know a perfect spot for stargazing. Owen's eyes lit up. Really? Can we bring the telescope and all the astronomy gear? You can bring all the gear you want, Jason said. Mom, will you come too? Owen asked hopefully. Tiffany hesitated. I don't know, sweetheart. I have that article deadline. Please, Owen pleaded. It'll be more fun if we all go together. Jason kept his eyes on the road, but his heart raced slightly. The thought of spending an entire weekend with Owen and Tiffany, away from everything and everyone, was both exhilarating and terrifying. All right, Tiffany finally relented. But only if you promise to finish all your homework first. I promise, Owen cheered. When they arrived at school, Owen hugged both parents before running off to join his friends. Jason and Tiffany watched until he disappeared into the building. He looks happy, Jason remarked. He is, Tiffany confirmed. Happier than I've seen him in a long time. And you? He turned to face her. I'm happy too, Tiffany admitted. Happy that Owen finally has the father he always wanted. Happy to see you really trying to be part of his life. And what about us? The question lingered in the air, delicate and iridescent, waiting for an answer. Jason, Tiffany began. I'm not asking for anything, he quickly interjected. I just want you to know that night 8 years ago wasn't just another night for me. It wasn't for me either, she admitted softly. But a lot has happened since then. I know. And I know I need to prove I've changed, not just as a father, but as a man. Tiffany gave him a sad smile. Let's focus on Owen for now, okay? The rest, time will tell. Jason nodded, respecting her decision. As they walked back to the car, he reflected on how much his life had changed in the past few months. The man who once lived for mergers and acquisitions now spent his mornings discussing robotics and astronomy with an 8-year-old boy. The executive who measured success in dollars now found his greatest joy in his son's smiles and hugs. In his makeshift home office, he found Rachel organizing his schedule for the day. The company's stock rose 2% after the announcement of the new CEO, she informed him, and there are 3 invitations for talks about your transition from corporate life to family life. Decline them, Jason said as he sat at his desk. My only priority now is preparing for a very important camping trip. Rachel smiled, jotting notes on her tablet. Should I research the best camping gear? Please. And Rachel, I need you to do one more thing. Of course, sir. Find the best astronomy expert in the area. I want to learn everything about constellations before the weekend. As Rachel left to handle her tasks, Jason picked up one of Owen's drawings from the wall. A detailed sketch of a robot explorer with technical annotations in the margins. His son was brilliant, curious, and full of dreams. For the first time in his life, Jason realized his own dream had nothing to do with business or power. During the week leading up to the camping trip, Jason immersed himself in an intensive private astronomy course. Dr. Elena Blackwood, a renowned astronomer from the Harvard-Smithsonian Observatory, spent hours explaining constellations, planetary movements, and celestial phenomena. Mr. Greedy, she remarked during one of their sessions, it's unusual to see someone so dedicated to learning all this in such a short time. My son, Jason explained, studying a star map. He knows every constellation, every planet. I want to share that with him. I want to understand his world. On Friday afternoon, while organizing camping gear in his new SUV, far more suited for family adventures than his old Aston Martin, Jason received an unexpected text from Karen. I saw your interview on Bloomberg. You look happy. I hope you found what you were looking for. He stared at the message for a long moment before replying. I found something I didn't even know I was looking for. I hope you find your happiness too, Karen. Tiffany and Owen arrived promptly at 4 p.m. as planned. Owen practically bounced with excitement, carrying his favorite telescope and a backpack full of astronomy books. Dad, you won't believe it. There's going to be a meteor shower this weekend. The Perseids, Jason said, proud of his newly acquired knowledge. It happens every year between July and August when Earth passes through the debris of the Swift-Tuttle comet. Both Owen and Tiffany stared at him in surprise. How do you know that? Owen asked, impressed. Let's just say your dad has been studying, Tiffany replied for him, a soft smile on her lips. The drive to the campsite, a remote area in New Hampshire renowned for its exceptionally dark skies, was filled with animated conversations about astronomy, Owen's school stories, and occasional stops to take photos of the scenic landscapes. Did you know this is one of the best places on the East Coast for stargazing? Owen explained as they set up camp. The light pollution index here is almost 0. Really? Jason feigned surprise, winking discreetly at Tiffany. He had researched extensively to find the perfect location. As night fell, the 3 of them gathered around a small campfire, roasting marshmallows and sharing stories. Owen was particularly eager to hear about how his parents met at MIT. Your mom was the brightest student in the journalism program, Jason recounted, his eyes lost in the memories. I first saw her in the library, surrounded by books on ethics and investigative reporting. And your dad, Tiffany added, was the typical business nerd who thought he could conquer the world. And I did, Jason reflected. I just didn't realize I was conquering the wrong things. The silence that followed was filled only by the crackling fire and the distant sound of crickets. Owen, absorbed in setting up his telescope, seemed oblivious to the tension between his parents. "Dad, come look. You can see Saturn's rings super clearly." Jason stood, grateful for the interruption. As he leaned over the telescope, he felt Tiffany's presence beside him, her familiar perfume mingling with the scent of pine trees. "You really have changed," she whispered, just for him to hear. "I had to," he replied in the same tone. "For him. For you. For me." The night unfolded with Owen pointing out constellations, Jason impressing him with his newfound knowledge, and Tiffany documenting the evening with her professional camera. When the meteor shower began, the three of them lay on a blanket, marveling at the natural spectacle. "Make a wish," Owen exclaimed with each shooting star. Jason didn't need to make any wishes. Everything he had ever wanted was there, under the starry New Hampshire sky. His brilliant, curious sun, the woman he had never stopped loving, and a sense of peace that billions of dollars had never been able to buy. "I think it's time to tell your parents the other news." The boy practically vibrated with excitement. "MIT wants to patent my project, and they want me to keep working on it as part of a special research program." Tiffany hugged her son, tears of pride shining in her eyes. "My love, that's incredible." Jason stood silent for a moment, absorbing the gravity of the situation. His son, at just 9 years old, had achieved something many scientists spent their entire careers striving for. But beyond the technical brilliance, it was Owen's passion and dedication that moved him most. "There's one more thing," Owen said, his tone now more serious. "I dedicated the project to both of you." He pointed to a small plaque at the base of the telescope. It read, "For my dad, who taught me it's never too late to do the right thing, and my mom, who never stopped believing in me. With love, Owen Collins Greedy." The use of Collins Greedy, a hybrid name Owen had started using recently, didn't go unnoticed by anyone. "Owen," Jason began, his voice thick with emotion, but he was interrupted by a commotion at the entrance to the lab. Karen Danworth, as elegant as ever in a Chanel pantsuit, walked toward them. The silence that followed was tense, but she maintained a polite smile. "I came to see the science fair," she explained, stopping at a respectful distance. "The Danworth Foundation is one of the sponsors, after all." Her eyes shifted to Owen. "You must be the young genius everyone's talking about." Owen, ever polite, extended his hand. "Owen Collins. Collins Greedy. Nice to meet you, Miss Danworth." Karen's smile softened, becoming more genuine. "The pleasure is mine, Owen. Your project is impressive." She turned to Jason and Tiffany. "You must be very proud." "We are," Tiffany replied kindly, instinctively reaching for Jason's hand. The gesture didn't escape Karen's notice. She nodded slightly. "Well, I just wanted to offer my congratulations and—" She hesitated for a moment. "To let you know that the Danworth Foundation would like to offer a research grant for the continued development of this project." Owen's eyes widened. "Really?" "Absolutely. Talent like yours deserves to be nurtured, regardless of personal circumstances." With that, she gracefully excused herself, leaving the room feeling lighter than when she had arrived. "That was unexpected," Jason remarked. "It was mature of her," Tiffany said softly, instinctively tightening her grip on his hand. The rest of the afternoon was a whirlwind of presentations, interviews with the press, and conversations with impressed professors and researchers. Owen shone in every interaction, explaining his project with a perfect blend of technical knowledge and youthful enthusiasm. When the fair finally ended, the three decided to celebrate at a small Italian restaurant where Jason and Tiffany had often dined during their college years. "They still make that mushroom ravioli you loved," Jason noted as they settled into a cozy table. "You remember that?" Tiffany asked, surprised. "I remember everything," he replied simply. Owen, engrossed in the kids' menu, seemed oblivious to the moment between his parents. "Can I get pepperoni pizza?" "Of course, sweetheart," Tiffany smiled. "Today's your day." As they waited for their food, Owen animatedly recounted the scientists he had met and his plans to further improve his project. Jason and Tiffany exchanged proud glances, their hands occasionally brushing on the table. "You know," Owen said suddenly, his tone more serious, "I have one more surprise." He pulled a folded envelope from his pocket and handed it to his parents. Inside was a drawing, 3 stick figures. One tall, one medium, and one small, standing in front of a house. It's the house I saw in Cambridge last week. Remember, Dad? The one with the big yard where we could set up an observatory. He paused, hesitating. I thought, well, now that you two are dating again. Jason and Tiffany exchanged surprised glances. They had been discreet about their rekindling, going out for occasional dinners only after Owen was asleep. How did you? Tiffany began. Owen rolled his eyes in the way only a near preteen could. Mom, you've been wearing your special perfume a lot more lately. And Dad, you smile at your phone every time she texts you. I'm not a little kid anymore, you know. Jason couldn't suppress a laugh. His son was indeed remarkably observant. And would you approve of this? Jason asked, amused. Duh! Owen exclaimed. Why do you think I've been accidentally leaving you two alone after family dinners? Or always asking both of you to take me places? Tiffany covered her face with her hands, laughing and tearing up at the same time. Oh my God! We've been outsmarted by a 9-year-old. Almost 10, Owen corrected. And it wasn't manipulation, it was strategic facilitation. Been reading my business books? Jason asked, amused. Actually, Owen grinned. Grandma Martha taught me. She said you two are too stubborn to see the obvious on your own. Tiffany's mother, who had surprisingly become an ally of Jason's in recent months, was apparently orchestrating things behind the scenes as well. Owen, Tiffany began gently. Adult relationships are complicated. They shouldn't be, he interrupted. You love each other. You always have. Why make it complicated? The silence that followed Owen's words was interrupted by the arrival of their dishes. Pepperoni pizza for him, mushroom ravioli for Tiffany, and linguine al mare for Jason. For a few moments, only the clinking of cutlery and the soft hum of conversation filled the air. The house, Jason finally spoke. The one you drew. I already made an offer on it. Owen, now freshly 10 years old, adjusted his tiny tuxedo for the 10th time. As the ring bearer, he took his responsibilities very seriously. Dad, he called, walking into the office where Jason was getting ready. Grandma Martha says Mom's almost ready. Oh, and the people from the observatory just arrived. The observatory, an early wedding gift from Jason to the family, had been completed the previous week. It was a modern yet discreet structure at the back of the yard, equipped with the best telescope money could buy and, of course, Owen's automated astronomical observation system, now upgraded to version 2.0. How does she look? Jason asked, struggling with his bow tie. Beautiful. Owen grinned nervously. Just like you. Jason laughed. His son truly had a knack for reading people. Here, help me with this. He gestured to the crooked bow tie. Owen stepped closer, adjusting it with practiced hands, thanks to hours of watching YouTube tutorials. There. Now you look like a real groom, not a CEO trying to fake it. Hey, I thought I'd improved my style recently. You have, Owen smirked, but you still need to work on looking less corporate. Upstairs, Tiffany stood in front of the mirror in the master bedroom. Her dress, a delicate creation of lace and silk, was worlds apart from the extravagant gown Karen had chosen for her canceled wedding with Jason. It was simple, elegant, and most importantly, reflected who she truly was. Sweetheart, Martha, her mother, stepped into the room. It's time. Mom, Tiffany said, taking her mother's hands. Thank you for everything. For supporting me when I found out I was pregnant. For helping with Owen all these years. For never losing faith that everything would work out in the end. Martha smiled, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her daughter's ear. I always knew Jason would come back. He just needed to grow up a little and figure out what really mattered. How did you know? Because he looked at you the same way your father looks at me. And still does after 40 years of marriage. A gentle knock interrupted them. It was Rachel, who had become not just an exceptional assistant but a close family friend. Sorry to interrupt, Rachel said, but someone wants to see the bride. To Tiffany's surprise, Karen Danworth entered the room, looking elegant in a navy blue dress. Karen, I wasn't expecting. I know, Karen said with a soft smile, but I couldn't stay away, not after everything. She handed over a small box. It's a gift for Owen, actually. Inside the box was a golden key. It's symbolic, Karen explained. The Danworth Foundation is establishing an astrophysics research lab at MIT, and we'd like him to be our first junior resident researcher. Tiffany felt tears welling up. Karen, this is the least I can do, Karen said. That boy has a special gift, and he helped me see that some things are bigger than old grudges. The two women embraced briefly, years of unspoken tension dissolving in that simple gesture. Outside, the 50 or so guests, just close family and friends, were beginning to take their seats on white chairs arranged in the garden. Dr. Martinez chatted animatedly with Bernard about the legal implications of patents for underage inventors, while Rachel coordinated last-minute details with the catering team. Owen darted among the guests, clearly proud of his role as junior host. When the music started, everyone turned to see Tiffany walking down the makeshift aisle, escorted by her father, under the blooming apple tree. Jason felt his heart skip a beat. Owen stood beside him, holding the rings on a small velvet pillow embroidered with constellations in golden thread, his own design. The officiant, an old MIT professor who had taught both Jason and Tiffany, began the ceremony with a reflection on second chances and the perfect timing of the universe. But the most moving moment came when it was time for the vows. Jason took Tiffany's hands, his voice steady but full of emotion. Tiffany, 15 years ago, I was too blind to see what truly mattered. I thought success was measured in skyscrapers and bank accounts. But every day since, I've learned that true wealth is found in love, in family, and in the moments we share with those who mean the most. He paused, glancing at Owen and then back at Tiffany. You taught me what love is, and Owen showed me who I want to be. I promise to spend the rest of my life being the man you both deserve, building a life full of laughter, love, and stargazing. Tiffany's tears fell freely as she began her own vows. Jason, you were my first love, my first heartbreak, and somehow my greatest hope. I thought I'd lost you forever, but life has a way of surprising us. I promise to cherish every moment we have, to laugh with you, grow with you, and build a home filled with love for us, for Owen, for the family we've become. Owen, standing between them, whispered loudly enough for everyone to hear. Finally, the guests erupted in laughter and applause as Jason and Tiffany sealed their vows with a kiss under the apple tree, where their new life together was beginning. As the sun set and the paper lanterns illuminated the garden, Owen led Jason and Tiffany to the observatory for its inaugural use. Together, the three of them gazed at the stars, ready to write the next chapter of their story under the vast, infinite sky. Tiffany, Jason began, his voice slightly trembling. 15 years ago, I made the mistake of thinking that success meant power and money. I had to lose you, find you again, and almost lose you once more to understand that true success is having someone to share the stars with at night. It's having a brilliant son who teaches me something new every day. It's waking up each morning knowing I'm part of something greater than any corporate empire, a family. Tiffany wiped away a tear before beginning her vows. Jason, when we met, we were two young dreamers. Our paths diverged, but maybe we needed that separation to grow, to become the people we are today. You're no longer the exec obsessed with success, and I'm no longer the idealistic journalism student. We are better versions of ourselves, shaped by time and experience. And now, finally, we are ready to build something real, something lasting together, with our incredible son. Owen, who had promised not to cry, discreetly wiped his eyes with the sleeve of his tuxedo as the officiant declared them husband and wife. The sun began to set, painting the sky in hues of pink and gold. The paper lanterns lit up automatically, a technical innovation by Owen, creating a magical atmosphere in the garden. During the reception, held in the same space, now illuminated by thousands of tiny lights, Owen surprised everyone with a heartfelt speech. When I was younger, he began, his voice clear and confident, I used to look at the stars and make 3 wishes every night. First, that my dad would find me. Second, that he and my mom would realize they still loved each other. And third, that we could be a real family. He paused, smiling. I guess the stars finally listened. The celebration continued into the night, with special moments unfolding in every corner of the garden. Karen and Tiffany were seen chatting animatedly about Owen's future research program, while Jason and Dr. Martinez discussed the possibility of expanding the observation system project to other educational institutions. Martha, the matriarch of the Collins family, watched everything with a satisfied smile. Her husband, Robert, approached with 2 glasses of champagne. "Remember when Tiffany told us she was pregnant?" he asked, handing her a glass. "You said everything happens for a reason." "It does," Martha replied, watching Owen show off his new observatory to a group of intrigued guests. "That boy, he's the bridge that reconnected 2 souls that should never have been apart." At a nearby table, Bernard was chatting with Rachel about the changes at the company since Jason had stepped down. "You know," Bernard remarked, "when he told me he wanted to resign as CEO, I thought he was making the biggest mistake of his life. But look at him now." Rachel smiled, watching Jason dance with Tiffany, their faces lit by genuine happiness. He finally figured out that some things can't be measured in quarterly reports. As the night wore on, Owen unveiled a special surprise. With Dr. Martinez's help, he had programmed his observation system to project a star map in the garden sky, creating an amplified artificial version of the Milky Way above the guests. "And that," he explained to an odd group, "is the constellation under which my parents met, Cassiopeia. It represents a queen who was punished for her vanity, but to me, it represents something else. It shows how the universe sometimes needs time to align the right stars." Jason and Tiffany exchanged emotional glances at their son's explanation. It was remarkable how he had turned his passion for astronomy into profound metaphors about life. Later, when most of the guests had departed, the Collins family gathered in the observatory. Owen adjusted his telescope to show Jupiter, which was particularly bright that night. "Look," he pointed. "You can see 4 of the Galilean moons tonight. Io, Europa, Ganymede, and Callisto," Jason recited, proud of his hard-earned astronomical knowledge. "Exactly," Owen grinned. "Did you know they represent a small family orbiting around something bigger? Just like us." Tiffany hugged her son, his small tuxedo now slightly wrinkled. "When did you get so wise?" "Probably when I realized I had the best parents in the world," he replied with a wink. "Even if it took you both a while to figure that out." Jason laughed, joining the family hug. "You know, son, sometimes the greatest geniuses are the ones who take the longest to understand the simplest things." The night ended with the 3 of them lying on the garden lawn, gazing at the real stars mixed with Owen's projections. The apple tree above them still glowed with paper lanterns, creating a canopy of soft light. Owen broke the comfortable silence. "When are you going to tell me about the honeymoon?" Jason and Tiffany exchanged surprised looks. "How did you?" Owen rolled his eyes. "Do you think I didn't see the tickets to the Galapagos on Dad's computer? And there are 3 tickets, not 2. We wanted to surprise you," Tiffany explained. "And you did," Owen assured them. "It's just that I'm very observant. Besides, I've been asking to visit the Galapagos ever since I started studying evolution." Jason tousled his son's hair affectionately. "You're impossible to surprise." "Not entirely," Owen said. With a grin, Owen said, "How you both surprised me today. This was the best day of my life." "Ours too, son," Tiffany whispered, squeezing Jason's hand. "Ours too." Above them, a shooting star streaked across the sky, and for the first time in a long while, none of the 3 needed to make a wish. Everything they had ever dreamed of was already there, under the starry canopy of a perfect night in Cambridge. 8 years later, the MIT auditorium was filled to capacity for the extraordinary graduation of Owen Collins Greedy. At just 18 years old, he wasn't only the youngest graduate in the institution's history, earning degrees in robotics, engineering, and astrophysics, but also the first to receive simultaneous offers from NASA and the European Southern Observatory in Chile to lead groundbreaking projects. In the front row, Jason and Tiffany watched with pride as their son stepped onto the stage to deliver his commencement address. Beside them, 2 7-year-old girls, Kristen and Kimberly, wore matching shirts that read, "Our big brother is a space genius." "When I was 10, Owen began, adjusting his mortarboard, "I gave my first presentation in this very auditorium. It was a project about astronomy and robotics, born out of my passion for exploring the unknown. But what I didn't realize at the time was that my greatest discovery wouldn't be about stars or planets, but about the power of love and family." Jason squeezed Tiffany's hand, the memory of that pivotal day rushing back. The twins, restless in their seats, whispered excitedly about how important their brother looked on stage. "My automated astronomical observation system, which began as a science fair project, is now being implemented in observatories worldwide. But its true purpose was never just scientific. It was about connecting people through a shared fascination with the universe, just as the stars connected my own family. In the audience, Dr. Martinez smiled with pride. Karen Danworth, now a prominent patron of the sciences through her foundation, clapped discreetly. Even Bernard and Rachel, still integral parts of the family's life, were there for this special moment. After the ceremony, the family gathered at the backyard observatory, now a much more sophisticated space, though it still retained its original charm. The twins twirled in their dresses, pretending to be space explorers as they darted around. Jason asked Owen if he had decided which offer he would accept. Owen smiled mischievously and said he had a third option in mind. Pulling an envelope from the pocket of his gown, he reminded his parents of the trip to the Galapagos shortly after their wedding. How could we forget? Tiffany laughed. That's where you decided to combine marine biology with astronomy in your studies. Owen opened the envelope to reveal a set of documents explaining that he had just received approval to establish the first fully automated underwater observatory in the Galapagos. It would be a project merging ocean exploration with astronomical observation. Jason expressed his amazement, and Owen added that there was more. Smiling at his parents, he asked if they could guess who was funding it. The Danworth Foundation. Tiffany ventured. Even better, Owen replied. Greedy Enterprises, now under new management, wants to establish a scientific research division, and they want me to lead it. Jason's heart swelled with pride. The company he had built was now transforming into something far greater and more meaningful under his son's leadership. Kristen interrupted, asking if they could see the turtles again, and Kimberly chimed in, asking about the dolphins. Owen grinned and assured his sisters that they would be his special assistants on the project. Someone needs to document all the discoveries after all, he said. The girls cheered, planning their future scientific adventures. That night, the Collins-Greedy family celebrated not just Owen's graduation, but the beginning of a new chapter in their lives, beneath the stars that had guided them for so many years. They toasted to the future, to family, and to the endless possibilities the universe still held for them. Somewhere in the vast expanse of the cosmos, the stars that had once heard the wishes of a lonely boy shone a little brighter, content in the knowledge that they had played a part in weaving this story of love, redemption, and discovery. If this story touched your heart, and you want to keep following inspiring and emotional tales, don't miss our upcoming videos. Subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications to stay updated with new content that can brighten your journey and bring valuable insights. Join us and keep exploring stories that truly matter. I'm sure the next video that pops up on your screen will move you as well. So click on it now and I'll see you there.